Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's do some prayers before we start our class. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto Ma Sadgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityurma Amritam Gamya. Om Sahnavavtu, Sahnavbhunaktu, Saviryam Karvavahi, Tejasvi Navadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. When we studied Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna summarized his teachings to us when he talked about do not go through these three doors to hell. And one of the door is Krodh. Kam, Krodh, Lobh. So Krodh. Krodh means anger. It's a doorway to hell. Even though we say that as human beings, it's natural to get angry. But we got to learn how to control it if we want to uplift ourselves. Okay. And other rishis, when they talked about the Shat Ripus, 6 enemies, they also added Krodh in there. Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar, Matsarya. Krodh is there too. We all know that anger is an emotion, and it is a very powerful emotion which can ignite a fire within us. And if this left unchecked, it can burn everything in its path. And there's also a famous quote about this, that you will not be punished for your anger, you will be punished by your anger. It is that kind of a fire which can burn us. Today, and maybe next week also, we might have to, it might spill over to the next week. To understand how to control our anger, with the powerful tools which rishis and the yogis have given it to us. The first tool is self-reflection. Self-reflection is our superpower, actually. This is a key tool in managing anger. It involves looking inward to examine our thoughts and emotions. By understanding the true sources of our anger, often the deeper issues like unmet expectations or past experiences, we understand this emotion which we call anger. We can even gain control over it with the help of self-reflection. The mind is everything what you think, and you can become that. That means that your thoughts shape your emotions and actions. And by regularly reflecting on these, we can identify our triggers address them at their root, and ultimately transform our anger emotions into understanding and calmness. So that's why the daily self-reflection is super important for a sadhak. Another tool is do not allow the comments and attitudes of others to control your life. Let me repeat it again. Don't allow the comments and attitudes of others to control your life. Because anger often arises when we let the words and actions of others affect our inner peace. We should not give others the power to control our emotions. When we react impulsively to negativity, we hand over the control of our happiness to others. We don't stay composed. We just let the external comments dictate our feelings. We need to learn how to protect our well-being. So the real harm comes from how we allow anger to impact our lives. By choosing not to react, we maintain our peace and control. We got to understand that core of anger is ignorance. That means at the heart of anger often lies ignorance, a lack of understanding of ourselves or even others, or even the situation at hand. So anger frequently stems from misunderstanding or false assumption when we don't fully grasp a situation. That's how we might react with anger, because we feel threatened or even we feel frustrated. So that's why knowledge is very important. By seeking knowledge and clarity, we can dispel the ignorance and keep this anger emotions at bay. This means that taking the time to understand and learn can transform our perspective, reducing anger and promoting peace. Another tool Rishis give us, kshama, forgiveness. When we practice forgiveness, we are freeing ourselves. Forgiveness is the most powerful and transformative practices we can embrace on the path of managing anger. Holding on to anger and resentment is like carrying a heavy burden that weighs us down and prevents us from moving forward. We all know that when we refuse to forgive, we allow the actions or the words of others to continue harming us. long after the initial offense. Maybe the initial offense was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or a week ago. But we continue brooding over it and keep on harming ourselves. Forgiveness is not just about the other person. Remember that also. It is primarily about freeing ourselves from the chains of bitterness and anger. So we are freeing ourselves. We are helping ourselves. I'm sure you have heard this, that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Very famous and a correct saying. This profound insight highlights the self-destructive nature of anger and resentment. When we cling to these negative emotions, we are the ones who suffer. Our minds become consumed with thoughts of revenge, justice, or what could have been done differently. We just keep on thinking about that over and over again. It is like a mental turmoil. This mental turmoil can lead to stress, anxiety, and even physical health problems. And as our bodies respond to the ongoing emotional strain, we keep on suffering. On the other hand, if we use this tool of forgiveness, which is really a conscious choice to release this burden. So consciously we have to use this tool. It does not mean condoning the actions that caused us harm, nor does it mean forgetting what happened. Instead, forgiveness is about acknowledging the pain and deciding not to let it control our lives any longer. This understanding got to be there. It is about choosing peace over conflict, healing over hurt, and it can be done with forgiveness. That's how we reclaim our power and take back control of our emotional well-being. We are in the driver's seat that way. The process of forgiveness can be challenging, especially when the hurt runs deep. It will require time, reflection, and perhaps even repeated efforts before we can truly let go. So in other words, it's not just a one-time exercise. In order to do this, we have to cultivate compassion, both towards ourselves and the others. Compassion. We can begin to see the humanity in those who have wronged us. Recognizing that they too are imperfect beings. People make mistakes. People say wrong things, hurtful things. We all have made errors from time to time. They may have acted out of their own pain or ignorance. Understanding that is very important. Forgiveness can be an act of profound self-compassion. So that means we are doing it all that work we are doing, all that sadhana, we are doing it for ourselves actually. When we forgive, we are not only releasing the other person from our anger, but we are also releasing ourselves from the ongoing suffering which anger brings. So this act of self-compassion is crucial for our own healing and growth. It allows us to move past the hurt, focus on building a future that is not defined by past wrongs. Forgiveness also opens the door to reconciliation, whether with others or within ourselves. I want you to understand that. Sometimes the person we need to forgive the most is ourselves. Perhaps for the mistakes we have made, opportunities we have missed, or even for allowing ourselves to be hurt. Self-forgiveness is a powerful act of liberation, freeing us from guilt and shame and allowing ourselves to move forward with a lighter heart. The lighter the baggage, higher we can move. As we forgive ourselves, we become more capable of extending that same grace to others, fostering healthier and more compassionate relationships. Practicing forgiveness can lead to a deeper understanding of the nature of suffering. All beings experience suffering in some form, and that this shared experience can be a source of empathy and connection. When we forgive, we really tap into this universal truth, recognizing that everyone, including ourselves, is on a journey of growth and healing. We've been suffering too long at different layers of our personality. This understanding can soften our hearts, making it easier to forgive and to let go of the anger that keeps us locked in suffering. So, deep connection between the suffering and the anger. We don't want to suffer, so we got to eradicate it wisely. Forgiveness is also an essential component of inner peace. By letting go of anger and resentment, we create space, love, and joy to enter our lives. The energy which was once consumed by our negative emotions can now be directed towards positive pursuits, such as personal growth. It could be relationships. It could be creativity. This shift not only enhances our own well-being, but it also radiates outwards, contributing to a more peaceful and harmonious world. We are carrying that beautiful light wherever we go. Forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves. It is a powerful tool that allows us to break free from the cycle of anger and hurt, and to move towards a life of greater peace, compassion, and joy. And we all want that. And this is the way to do it. While the journey of forgiveness may be difficult, it is also one of the most rewarding paths we can take. By practicing forgiveness, we open our hearts to healing and transformation, freeing ourselves from the past and embracing the present with a sense of peace and possibility. Another tool we can use to cultivate the emotions opposite of anger is mindfulness. Or you can say, use mindfulness to channel your anger. So angry thoughts are there, for whatever the reason, which channel to use to get rid of them or to understand them. Mindfulness is one of the most effective tools for managing and transforming anger. It's a practice of being fully present. That's what mindfulness is. Okay? Fully present and being aware of our thoughts. Because ordinarily thoughts come and go without any effort. So mindfulness really means that you are fully present and aware of your thoughts. You know that they are your thoughts. And ultimately, you control your thoughts, not the thoughts control you. And not just only the thoughts, the feelings also, and the surroundings also. It can help us observe our emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Because when we know we are in charge, then we don't get overwhelmed by it. When we practice mindfulness, we develop the ability to notice anger as soon as it arises, rather than being swept away by it. Before we even say hurtful words, before we do something damaging, we are aware of it. And we can control it or nip it at the bud. This awareness creates a space between the emotion and our response, allowing us to choose how we want to act. Instead of reaching impulsively, and in order to practice this, you got to remember the definition of mindfulness is do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future. That means stay in the present. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Because this quote captures the essence of mindfulness, actually. Because often we just use this word mindfulness, we really don't know what does it mean. So remember this quote. By focusing on the present moment, we free ourselves from the regrets of the past and the anxieties of the future. Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita talked about it several times. That's how a yogi's mind is. Two common triggers of anger are the regrets of the past and the anxieties of the future, actually. But when we are fully present, we are experiencing our emotions without having them dictate our actions. So mindfulness teaches us to observe our anger, understand its source, and then decide on a thoughtful and measured response. So these rishis, they are not saying that don't respond, don't act, but they say do not act and respond impulsively. That's where we make the mistake. One of the key aspects of mindfulness is non-judgmental awareness. I'm sure you're familiar with this term. This means observing our anger without labeling it as good or bad, non-judgmental, but simply acknowledging that it is there. This approach can be incredibly liberating because it allows us to accept our feelings without adding layers of guilt or shame. Instead of thinking, I shouldn't be angry. Because by saying that, you are suppressing the anger. But these rishis and the yogis, they say, understand why you are angry and deal with it with the knowledge. We learn to say that I am feeling angry right now. And that's okay. This is the acceptance, which is a first step towards managing our anger constructively. Recognizing that it is there. That is mindfulness. Focusing on the now. Mindfulness also encourages us to explore the physical sensations that accompany anger. Often anger manifests in our body as tension, racing heart, or even shallow breathing. By bringing our attention to these sensations, we can start to calm ourselves physically, which in turn helps to calm our minds. Because we know there's a deeper connection between a body and the mind. Calming the body will calm the mind. In our yogic practices, we learn the techniques such as pranayama, deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or even mindful walking, or even prayers can be a powerful way to dissipate the physical energy of anger before it spirals out of control. Another powerful aspect of mindfulness is its ability to reveal the underlying thoughts and beliefs that fuel our anger. Through mindful observation, we might notice that our anger is often tied to thoughts like, this is unfair, or I'm not being respected. Those thoughts, when we are paying attention to our thoughts, we can really dissect them properly. By recognizing these thoughts, patterns, we can begin to challenge them. Instead of just getting swayed by them, challenge them. Are these thoughts really true? Are there alternative ways to view the situation? That's a mindfulness. This kind of inquiry can help us to shift our perspective reducing the intensity of anger. Remember, the focus over here is how to control our anger. Mindfulness helps us to recognize that our emotions, including anger, are transient. They arise and they stay for a while and they pass away. This understanding can be incredibly empowering because it reminds us that we do not have to act on each and every feeling that comes up. We can simply observe it, knowing that it will eventually fade. This realization can prevent us from making hasty decisions or saying things in the heat of the moment that we might later regret. Mindfulness also fosters empathy and compassion both towards ourselves and others. When we are mindful, we are more likely to recognize the suffering of others also, or suffering that underlies our anger and anger of others. And this awareness can really soften our hearts. And softer the heart, easier it is to respond with kindness rather than aggression. We start to see that everyone is doing the best they can with the tools they have, and that often anger is a cry for help. Remember that. A person who is angry is suffering. It's a sign of inner pain. So mindfulness encourages us to stay connected to these higher values. Even when we are angry, it helps us to remember what is truly important to us when we are mindful. Whether that's maintaining a meaningful relationship, healthy relationship, or acting with integrity, or preserving our peace of mind. What is important to us? By staying grounded in our values, we are less likely to be swayed by fleeting emotions and more likely to respond in the ways that align with our true selves. The practice of mindfulness can lead to long-term changes in how we relate to anger. Over time, as we become more skilled at observing and managing our emotions, we may find that anger arises less frequently now and with less intensity also. We might become more patient, more understanding, and even more resilient in the face of challenges. But remember that this transformation doesn't happen overnight. We need a consistent practice. So mindfulness can fundamentally change our relationship with anger, leading to a more peaceful and balanced life. So we have to use mindfulness to channel our anger. Remember, it's not suppressing the anger, It's not ignoring our emotions. Rather, it is about embracing them with awareness and compassion, and choosing to respond in ways that promote peace. And another term for this is called sublimation. It's not suppressing. We have to understand these emotions are, we are not the emotions, we are not the thoughts, we are not the body, but we have all these tools. We got to learn how to use the tools to know who we are. So by staying present and mindful, we can transform anger from a destructive force into an opportunity for growth and healing. So these are some of the tools, and we'll talk more about it next week. So just remember to understand mindfulness. That is one thing I talked about in detail. And forgiveness. When we look at these words, they look very small, but there's a deep message associated with these words. And then another thing I talked about was having more knowledge, removal of the ignorance. When we remove the ignorance, we have the knowledge and anger will go away. And then another thing I talked about, that don't allow the comments and attitudes of others to control your life. Okay, it's very important. It's not that we have to ignore people, but the control of our emotions should be in our hand. Those are our emotions, our thoughts. Remember that. And the very first thing I told you was self-reflection. Self-reflection. That's a superpower. Okay, so we will definitely continue with this. I have few more pointers or the tools to explain it to you, and we'll finish it up next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.